Finesse! Welcome to the Whiskey Vault. I'm Daniel Whittington, Chancellor of Wizard Academy, Whiskey Marketing School, Level 4 Whiskey Sommelier. Somebody asked me about that. I'll tell you a whole thing about it later. We've got a gift from Jason Souter, Level 4 Whiskey Somm, instructor, Teaninich. I was wondering how long I could go with that. Could burn a lot of time just playing around with that one. This distillery has a lot of history, but it ended up being sold into the hands of DCL that then became Diageo in like the 1930s. It was closed, shuttered, opened, improved, closed again. Then they built an entirely new facility, and then they closed it, and then they reopened and started functioning, and then they didn't use the old stills, and then they closed again, and now and then they built an entire, they said in 2013, I don't know what happened to it. They might be doing it. 2013, Diageo said they were going to build an entirely new facility next door to the old facility. But Teaninich, as you know it, you wouldn't know it, because it mostly goes into Diageo blends like Johnny Walker. Only time you get a single release from them is independent bottlers getting their hands on Teaninich. So I've had some SMWS Teaninich, and I've had, there's been several independent bottlers that I've had. This one's interesting for a bunch of reasons. One, it's a single grain. Now, grain whiskey in Scotland means any grain, also will include barley, but it could be corn, could be rye, could be barley. It's very rarely barley because usually you use whatever the cheapest grain is, commodity grain, because it's distilled on a column still, not a pot still. And that's the real definition of grain whiskey, is column distilled spirit from grain, and it distills way higher than a pot still. So you're up there like not vodka, but just below it. And the reason that a bunch of the malt guys didn't like it in the 1800s and the early 1900s was because it strips a lot of the flavor profile out. And when you distill through a column still and you distill that high, you remove a lot. And so that's why you can kind of use any grain. Not really, but like different grains will taste different. But the vast majority of the flavor impacts from those grains are already stripped out on the distillation runs. Whereas if you use a different grain on a pot still, it's a whole other ballgame. So this is a grain whiskey, which means column distilled, but it's a special edition they did, and it's 8 years old. And the reason it's a special edition is because they used rye whiskey instead of your standard wheat or corn for the grain whiskey. And the question was, is rye, even in a column still, going to add a whole bunch of flavor that's not normally in a single grain? And now we find out, thanks to this. I don't know where Jason got this, but like this looks to me like one of those distillery only releases, like that you can get when you're touring Scotland or something like that. But okay, first, it smells really young. It smells new-makey, even at 8 years old. And there is a pungent, kind of spritzy funk. It's not licorice, but it's in that direction. This is unlike any other single grain I've ever smelled. So absolutely, did the grain make a difference? Absolutely it did. This was one of the Diageo 2025 special releases. It's super honey, bourbon barrel. It's malted rye. And high proof. I can't read that in the glass. 60.3%. Is that right? That's what it looks like in the small print. I'm delaying so much because there's a smell in here that I just can't quite wrap my hands around. That's kind of pungent is the wrong word, but it's strong and it's tangy and it's spicy. All words I'm not used to saying about single grain. Oh yeah. I wonder if releasing it this young really did give us a hand on what the new make tasted like. But it is distinct. It is absolutely distinct. Teaninich is way up there. It's the northern, wow, would you call that Northern Highlands? North of Inverness. So if you're driving up and you hit Speyside, Inverness is in the peak of Speyside in the little divot on the North Sea. And you go around that, and it's actually closer to Dalmore. And so it's up there in the Highlands. It's a Highland whiskey. But because they're making whiskey for blends too, they've got their column stills. There's a waxiness to this that's kind of catching me off guard. Something that's almost citrus, but not quite. Clove. Maybe clove? Yeah, maybe clove. This is freaking me out, man. It's very distinct. It's very simple. I'm going to add a little water. It's a lot of honey. It's a little bit clingy. The nose is more interesting than the palate is. There's way more. That was a real small dash. I'm going to add just a little bit more. There is way more going on in this glass, though, than any single grain I've tried from Scotland. Like, it's simple, but even in that simplicity, there's more happening than most of the single grains that we have in the vault. Yeah, that opened up the fruit notes, but it's still kind of funky, waxy, spicy. Oh, it brought in this like floral palate kind of. Wow. With a dash of water. That's really good. I don't know. The nose, I would pick this as a single grain. Dash of water and a palate, I might miss that. Like it's got viscosity for a grain. Wow. All right. Well, there you go. This is what we call hidden drams, which is, even when someone gives it to us, it's a whiskey that you are unlikely to get your hands on. So I'm sorry. But if you do, it's interesting to try it. It's not something I would go seeking, but if it was in a lineup or if it was at a bar, I'd be like, oh, you got to try this one. It's kind of interesting. Your mileage may vary. Cheers to you. I'm really glad you're here. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Your mileage shouldn't vary on liking and subscribing.